Okay, here we go. Chapter 6, Doorknob Disaster. I think there was a doorknob disaster in the first Sasquatch when Ben forgot to lock the door and the Sasquatch got out. Huh. At 7:30 Wednesday morning, Ben met Pearl in front of the dollar store. Pearl and her parents lived above the store, and her great-aunt Gladys lived in the basement apartment. The windows were decorated with all sorts of items you could buy for just $1. Light bulbs and lunch boxes, lemons and loofahs. Alliterations. Pearl was munching on a sandwich made from 2 waffles, scrambled eggs, and bacon. She loved turning her meals into sandwiches. "I am super tired," she said. She explained with a mouthful of food. "I was up most of the night worrying." "Me too," said Ben with a air-sucking yawn. After leaving Pearl yesterday, Ben had played 23 games of checkers at the senior center. He had purchased a new toaster at the hardware store. He had eaten a dinner of leftover brisket and mashed potatoes and listened to his grandfather's stories about the good old days. Then he had gone to bed, but every sound had drawn him to the window, searching the sky for the dragon. Snooze didn't seem concerned about the dragon's return. He waddled on his wheel and nibbled corn kernels. Barnaby, who had eaten the dragon's scale, had slept peacefully. But for Ben, it had been a very long night. Now he and Pearl were on their way to see Dr. Wu. They'd tell her what had happened. She would know what to do. And as they walked down Main Street, they passed a lot of signs. Closed, vacancy, for rent. Many of the shops had gone out of business after the button factory shut down. The town looked like it was falling apart at the seams. Paint was faded and lampposts had rusted. There were so many cracks in the sidewalk, Ben decided that he would need wings or a jetpack to avoid stepping on them. "Uh-oh," he said as he spotted red overalls and a red baseball cap a few yards away. Mrs. Mulberry, Officer Millie, and Mrs. Nod, the owner of the Buttonville bookstore, were deep in conversation. Ben and Pearl stopped to listen. "My knob is missing," said Mrs. Nod, pointing to the hole in the bookstore's front door. "Who would take a doorknob?" "That's what I'm trying to find out," said Officer Millie, and she wrote it down on a little pad of paper. "It's another metal item," Ben whispered to Pearl. "Why are you whispering?" Mrs. Mulberry asked, glaring at the kids. "What do you know about this?" Pearl shoved the last of her breakfast sandwich in her mouth, and then after a big swallow, she said, "Ben and I know nothing about this. Absolutely nothing." "That's right," Ben said. "Nothing. Well, I'm still convinced that Dr. Wu is behind these thefts," said Mrs. Mulberry with a stomp of her foot. "Let's go to the hospital right now and ask her all sorts of questions. I've made a list." And she pulled a piece of paper from her pocket. Officer Millie cleared her throat. "Have some patience, Martha. I'm in charge of this investigation, and I will talk to everyone in town, including Dr. Wu, but it may take a few days." "A few days?" Mrs. Mulberry threw her hands in the air. "And in the meantime, the thief will continue to steal. As president of the Buttonville Welcome Wagon, I take safety very seriously. I didn't sleep a wink last night, I was so worried. And my daughter's such a nervous wreck. Well, she's hallucinating because yesterday she even said she saw a dragon." Ben and Pearl looked anxiously at each other. We gotta go," Pearl said, tugging on Ben's sleeve. "Bye." He followed her away from the bookstore, and as soon as they were out of earshot, he said, "Why would a dragon keep stealing metal?" "Well, you can get money for metal at the recycling center," Pearl pointed out. "Yeah, but what does a dragon need with money?" "Beats me." Pearl tucked her t-shirt into her orange basketball shorts. Her pink slippers didn't match her outfit, But who could blame her for wearing them? He wished he had a pair of leprechaun shoes, just not in pink. "Come on, let's go," he said. And they darted around the corner and bumped right into the red wagon that was blocking the sidewalk. "Victoria," Pearl snarled. Victoria Mulberry was sitting in the official welcome wagon. She looked up from her book. "I've been waiting for you," she said, and she held out an empty pickle jar. "Know what I got here?" She smiled proudly, exposing her glistening blue braces. Ben leaned close to the jar, and a little something lay inside. "It looks like a piece of spaghetti." Victoria blinked. Her glasses were so thick they made her eyes look like they belonged to a frog. "It's not a piece of spaghetti. It's a worm. I found it. Dr. Wu won't let me into the hospital unless I have a sick worm. This one's really sick. It's not even moving." Pearl grabbed the jar and shook it, and then she snorted. "Pfft. It's not moving, Victoria, because it's dead." "Dead? It's all dried up." Pearl handed the jar back to Victoria. "Dr. Wu doesn't take care of dead worms." "Too bad, Victoria." And then Pearl skedaddled up the sidewalk. "You can't put a worm in a jar without dirt and water, moisture," Ben explained. "They need moisture." "My mom wants me to be an apprentice just like you and Pearl, but I think worms are gross." "Ben," Pearl cried, "come on or we'll be late." Ben tried to get away, but Victoria stepped in front of him. "I saw that dragon," she said, spit flying from her braces. "And I told my mom, but she didn't believe me. She said that I was having a nervous breakdown and that I needed to take a nap. But I know what I saw, Ben." "Tell me where it lives." Ben shuffled. He felt his cheeks go red. Ben!" Pearl hollered. She had made it all the way to the next block. "Bye," he said, and he darted around Victoria. "I saw it!" Victoria yelled. "I'm not crazy!" As Ben ran after Pearl, he didn't know whom he felt sorrier for, Victoria or the worm. But there were more pressing matters, like protecting Dr. Wu and her dragon. And that is the end of Chapter 6. Chapter 7, Pooper Scoopers. To be continued.